Hey everyone, Shelby here. Welcome to part 2 of my Fundamentals of Piano series. Today we're going to be talking about basic technique on the piano, how to sit at the piano, how to hold your hands, and generally make a good sound. So when we talk about practicing technique, there's two main goals we're working towards. One is creating the sound that we want, and two is creating that sound as efficiently as possible. So not causing any extra strain, not using any unnecessary muscles, etc. In regards to piano, this means relying on our larger muscle groups as much as possible. People are often surprised when I say you don't really play the piano with your fingers. And obviously you use your fingers when you play the piano, but what I mean by this is you want to engage other parts of your body in this process so that it's not just the small muscles in your hands that are working your fingers, but also the weight of your arm is being used to produce the sound. So the very basic first technique I teach students is simply dropping the arm onto the keyboard. This is how you create a really full sound on the piano. Whereas if I just try and use the movement of my fingers, I don't have nearly as much control or power. So I'm going to go in order from the largest muscle groups to the smallest and how they should be used when you're playing the piano. So we're going to start with the legs and the back. These don't get used a whole lot, but what I want you to think of these as is your base, okay? So if you plant your feet nice and firmly on the ground, you are giving yourself a firm base to play the piano from. Now with this strong base, if you lean slightly forward into the piano, you'll be at the perfect vantage point to really dig into the keys. The other thing this strong base provides is a bit of mobility to get around on the instrument. So the piano is a pretty large instrument with 88 keys, and you generally want to place your body behind where your hands are playing. So if you're playing really low on the piano, you might want to lean over. And if your feet are planted firmly on the floor, you'll be able to lean over without falling over. Okay, moving on to the shoulders. The shoulders don't play a particularly active role in playing the piano, but they can certainly get in the way. And what I mean by this is if you find yourself raising and lowering your shoulders a lot while you're playing, this is going to affect the weight of your arm and the position of your hands in a negative way. So you generally want to keep your shoulders relaxed. So next up is the elbow. I like to think of the elbow as the leader and that the wrist and the fingers are kind of just following the directions that the elbow is giving. So if I'm moving up a scale, you'll notice that my elbow is moving and then my wrist is following along with it. This is really important. So you want to make sure that your elbow is staying loose and is guiding the way for your hand as you're moving around. Next up is the wrist. It's really important to keep a flexible wrist because you want to have good alignment. What I mean by alignment is whenever I play a note on the piano, I want to be able to draw a straight line from my elbow all the way to the tip of my finger. And the position of my wrist plays a crucial part in this. Let me show you what I mean. So if I play the C major scale, pay attention to where my wrist is going as I move up. It's not staying locked in the same position. It's actually moving so that my wrist is directly behind whichever finger is playing. So when I play with my thumb, for example, my wrist is all the way to the left to support the thumb and create this straight line. But as I move up, my wrist is migrating to the right. Until I get all the way to the pinky, in which case my wrist has now moved all the way to this side to support the pinky and create that straight line again. Notice that my elbow and my wrist are working together to create good alignment. First, my elbow leads, and then my wrist follows. The wrist also needs to be free to rotate for certain techniques like tremolos and trills. Notice that my wrist doesn't move very much up and down when I play this scale. If your wrist is too high or too low when you're playing, you're going to lose the support of the rest of your arm. So finally we come to the fingers. Like I said, if all the other parts of the playing mechanism are doing their jobs properly, the fingers really won't have to do much work. But I do like to think of the fingers as the point of contact for the piano. So you're really just playing with the very tip of your finger, and this gives you the most control. But you do want to make sure that you're holding your fingers in the proper position, which is to say, a nice natural curve down into the piano keys. If when you're playing, your knuckles start to cave in here or here, then you're creating a disconnect in your alignment, and again, you're losing the support provided by the rest of your playing mechanism. Okay, now we're ready to start making some sounds. So the first technique we're going to learn is simply dropping the hand into a key. So we're going to focus all of the weight of the arm into the middle finger and simply lift up and let gravity do the work, dropping the full arm into that single key. When I put the full weight into my arm, I get a loud sound. And if I put a little less weight behind it, I get a soft sound. This technique is the basis for pretty much all piano playing, so I want you to really get used to the feeling of just letting gravity do the work for you. Our next technique is a slight variation on this. It's for staccato playing. So instead of dropping into the note and just leaving your hand there, you're gonna allow a rebound, kind of like if you were dribbling a basketball. So just bounce right back up from it. And we can start practicing this with our other fingers as well. Okay. The next technique is our 5-finger technique. So this is what we're going to be using to play scales and melodies. So I'm going to play 5 notes going up from C to G with my left hand, starting on the pinky. And I'm going to make sure that my wrist is gradually moving as I go up, and that the weight of my arm is being transferred from one finger to the next very smoothly. You can practice this very slowly and really get used to the feeling of shifting that weight from one finger to the next. So the last technique I'm going to show you today is the wrist rotation. This is going to be useful for tremolos and trills, as well as passages where you're skipping around a bit more. The basic concept here is that you're moving your wrist like this, like you're turning a doorknob, okay? So to practice this, we're just going to alternate between C and G with the pinky and the thumb. Making sure to really get that rotational movement. And if you want to add on to this, you can start using other fingers. So those are the basic 4 techniques of playing piano. Dropping the arm, staccato playing, the 5-finger movement, and the wrist rotation. If you master these, pretty much any other technique you come across in piano playing is just going to be some variation or combination of these 4 techniques. So get used to playing these because you're going to be using them a lot. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video, and I'll catch you next time. Happy practicing.